Let me start off with this simple question. Very, very simple question. I think simple questions are the most dangerous, the most difficult, because their seeming simplicity belies their complexity. Hence the problem. When you try to explain to people today how bad the media are, and everybody agrees. I mean, everybody, without a doubt, agrees to this. If I went to any group to speak, I mean, political, and I walked in and I had no idea who they were. I didn't know if they were conservative or liberal or democratic or libertarian or whatever. And you said, look, you got to speak to them. You got to say something. And I don't have enough time to tell you who they are. So start talking. Win them over. But you don't know who they are. And assuming that there was nothing about them that kind of, gave us a hint. If they had a bunch of if you saw a bunch of Birkenstocks with socks and ponytails and tie-dyes and this, a lot of buttons versus, suits and preppy whatever, or a lot of crosses or dashikis. Do we even wear them anymore? But the point is, assuming I couldn't even see the audience. Let's say it was just a big spotlight and I had no idea who they were. And I had to go on and say something that would win them over, that I know they would agree with, that I know they would be applauding without reservation or without any kind of conviction or any kind of comparison. I would say the following. I would say I hate politics. I'll start off with that. I hate politics. I hate American politics. I hate this left and right business. And I would also say that I hate the media. And everybody would agree. Everybody. Even people in the media would agree to what the media are. Even the people in the media. I could speak to a media group and they would agree that they hate the media. Even though they're in the media. How do you explain that? It's a fantastic concept. It is so universal. That and how we hate politics. Because what that means is we're projecting, we're interpreting and internalizing and focusing that particular way of thinking on the politics that we don't like, that we don't care for, that we dislike, that we have disdain for, and that we loathe, and that we abhor, and we there's a sense of revulsion for this form of unfair, inaccurate. Okay. Well, then, as my hypothetical speech would go on, I would start saying things and people would know kind of what I'm doing. They would then know where I was. If I were to say that the type of media that was directed towards Donald Trump was unprecedented and without peer in terms of how horrible it was, that would immediately determine whose side folks were on. That immediately would tell me everything. It would tell them everything. I mean, they would. Because to some people, they thought that much of the coverage was very, very good. Because they hated him. They hated him with a passion. It had nothing to do with the issues at hand. It had nothing to do with the world issues or whether it was Syria or whatever. They hated him. They hated him, his family, his wife, his kids, his children, his hair, his steaks, his water, his hotels, his face, his name, his chins, his plane, everything about him. Didn't matter what he said. They hated his popularity. They hated his snubbing them. They hated the way he disrespected them. They hated the way he didn't need them. He hated the way he punted over them. and went directly to the people through Twitter and social media. They hated him. And therefore, the focus of the election was against him no matter what, to the exclusion of that which Hillary Clinton did, or even, frankly, in support of Hillary Clinton and what she stood for. I have no idea. But nonetheless, that's kind of where that was. Let me tell you what folks in the media today will have a hard time understanding. In fact, I was thinking about providing this to today's current batch of journalists and the like. If there exists these people anymore, if they in fact do exist, okay? The first thing I was going to say is, and I would sit them down, and I would say, before I begin my disquisition, my dissertation, my sermon, and before I limn and provide to you all of the problems that have been historically attendant to that of media, let me start off by saying something even more important. You are of the belief that the world is fair and good and clean, and that conspiracy theories are these wild-eyed, unproven, kind of disconnected, disjointed, psychotic yarns, these fanciful, crazy things that people come up with in which the government, your government, the government that's supposed to help you, the government that's there to provide assistance and keep us safe against evil. A government that, granted, maybe fractionalized, maybe nuanced and different when it comes to certain, for lack of a better word, certain issues. But for the most part, it is a government and government folks who are there to help us all and to provide us with a just this common good. We'll argue about certain things, but for example, cutting to the chase, there's no way that anybody in government would ever create the illusion of something in what is called false flag, or that would ever be involved in fueling and funding and paymastering and supporting and equipping and arming rogue, evil factions. Our government would never do that. We're the good guys. Sometimes we may have strange political bedfellows, but we don't do that. And the government always acts in a way that keeps as its own consideration, its own focus, our collective well-being. Our government never is inhabited and manned and womaned by people who are using the full faith and credit and the protections and our wonderful country as a means by which they secure their own particular wealth, their own particular fortune, their own particular treasure. That doesn't happen. That's too awful, too horrible, too terrible, too much. Oh, you poor folks. Oh, you poor folks. You poor journalists. You have to understand there are people in this country. There are forces, dark forces. There are hidden government, parallel governments. There are secret governments. There are deep state. There are different cabals and covens and in compartmentalized factions and groups and cliques and There is a Wall Street contingent, and we use these terms very, very generically, very generically. But there are people who represent the globalist elites, the globalist cliques, the globalist financiers, the banksters, the folks who are of the Bilderberg set, the people who are involved in central banks, the BIS, the Bureau of International Settlements, the Central Bank of Central Banks, and royalty, and the billionaires. There are people. You saw this past week a number of people sitting around the table with Donald Trump who represent some of the most powerful people by virtue of their money and by virtue of their mega firepower. And the fact that he called them to meet, to sit, to grovel, to appear before him shows an unparalleled, heretofore unseen bravado and brio that I just find so tantalizing, so tasty. I love it. You got to understand, new journalists, these are the people who, when they get to that level, are spoken to. Because nobody becomes a billionaire in this country without conditions. Nobody becomes a billionaire in this country without an explanation that what they have can be taken away. That what they have will only be maintained if they play along and play the game. That there are things that happen. There are things that occur. There are different aspects of government that can really wreak havoc on these people. Sherman Antitrust Acts. Remember when Bill Gates had his Microsoft problems and Boys was just, slaughtering him on a deposition? It was just wonderful. Do you think that Mark Zuckerberg and these guys just put together Facebook? Bunch of kids at Harvard who had this idea of this really cool way of interconnecting folks. Do you think these people started without DARPA, without funding, without backing, without approval, without protection, without an okay, without the imprimatur of this government? Do you think that happened? Do you think Facebook was just this goofy kid with the t-shirt who came along and said, hey, I'm going to put together this thing, and isn't it cool? And hey, who knew it got this big? Are you kidding me? Do you understand? Young journalists, do you understand who these people are before we even get to the news? Do you know how this works? Do you know who runs your show? Do you know what's happening? Do you think that Bill Gates got to be Bill Gates without the approval, without the express written approval and backing of the government? Do you understand that? Don't you understand what happens when the government realizes, wait a minute, Bill, are you telling me that you produce a product that everybody is going to have in their home, and it's a product that they're going to be putting everything into, their name and address and friends' names and addresses and pictures and tax information. They're going to do their online banking, their sexual predilections, their romantic inclinations, their social. You mean to tell me they're going to each have in their home this device that you own and that you can provide back doors to? And that you can provide us with the ability to, let me get this straight, perhaps kind of mosey into, so to speak? And if you were to leave certain doors open to allow our backdoor entrance possible, if you were to do that, we would provide you with untold, uninterrupted, unimpeded wealth and power beyond your wildest dream. But you've got to play games. Play games. You have to play the game, I should say. Yes, that's it. That's more like it. You must play the game. You see, this is the way it works. Oh, and by the way, Bill Gates, make sure you leave a lot of back doors open. Maybe that's why you get so many viruses. Maybe that's why Apple doesn't do it. They weren't privy to that. Maybe they didn't get to Steve Jobs earlier. I don't know. I can't tell you. I wasn't there. My young journalist, do you understand what I'm telling you? Do you understand? There are terrible things that happen. You're going to have to know when to look the other way. We don't want you to ask any questions involving 9/11. And you're going to be seeing an example of that. We're going to show you what happens. We're going to take especially something that is so horrible, so horrific, so unbelievably frightening, that we are going to put together something that is so monumentally horrible that nobody would ever dare question it. Nobody would ever even want to question it. It would be so horrible and so chimerical, is that? No, maybe. So beyond explanation that the version that you will be able to deal with the most, that there was a bunch of people with box cutters and lived in caves and they hated our freedom and they came along and they did this stuff and because of all this, that you'll believe much, much earlier. But you're not going to want to delve into this. And we know how you are. And Mr. and Mrs. Journalist, you have to understand this. We saw the same thing with JFK. We saw what happened then. We saw what happened when people don't want to believe a couple of things. They don't want to believe that somebody could be that horrible, to plot and plan and remove somebody. The good guys, us, the good guys, whoever the good guys are, whoever these people represent, the good guys. We can't believe these good guys would ever be involved in something so horrible as that, as to kill a president. And not only that, to cover it up, to look the other way. My God. We can't fathom that. We can't stomach that. You see how this works, fellow new journalist? You see how this works? And it goes back. Before your time, there was Vietnam. Oh, my God, yeah. You don't want to go there. You don't want to hear how we not only let that happen, made it happen, and continue to let it happen. You know how much money people made from that? And by the way, that wasn't even anything to do with natural resources. That was pure idealism, new teeth, but idealism that happened to accompany an actual way of thinking. That they were actually stopping and thwarting and impeding and ablating and cutting and removing and expurgating and amputating this domino potential, this kind of a communist, metastatic, systemic, poison called communism and the like. Oh, it was a great story. People believed it without any question. It was wonderful. And over 10 years of that, we didn't even declare war. 10 years, 12 years. In fact, it went on forever. When you really get down into Vietnam, it goes to show you how incredibly stupid that was. Because going back to the Viet Minh, go back to the French, go back to the Japanese, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, these people fought back, and we never learned. And we kept going for reasons that to this day we still can't figure out. Iraq, Iran. Oh my God. Let me tell you something. This is something that we cannot begin to tell you how you're going to have to deal with the horrors of these realities. But you're a journalist now, and you have to look the other way. Now, when it comes to something which is most important, I want you to understand this. I want you to understand that there's going to be a thing now that you're dealing with called terrorism. And terrorism is the latest boogeyman, the latest straw man, the latest thing that happened, which was so important and so incredible for people all over the country to recognize. I'm checking on something right here for one particular reason. I hate for people to hear this clicking noise, but I had to check something quickly. Forgive me, mi dispiace, lo siento. Terrorism is that thing that is a dream come true. You see, whenever people in the ruling class want to define and devise and to construct a bad man, a straw man, it always helps to have something so ghoulish, so horrible, so un-American, so perfectly evil. And if they're not evil, we're going to create that evil. But it's important for you to understand that we will create that. Because what happens is when there's somebody who is evil, when there's something that is an existential threat to old glory and who we are, this wonderful, grand and glorious country, when a threat is concocted, contrived, created, manufactured, or exploited, or allowed to occur, or when it just pops up spontaneously, you, the public, will do anything we say, the government, in retaliation to stop that fear. It is a classic Hegelian dialectic. Instead of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. No. It's easier than that. The Hegelian dialectic works like this. What Mr. Hegel would suggest is, when you create a problem, with that comes a reaction. And after the reaction is the solution. What does that mean? It works like this. Problem. Terrorism. Scary men with beards and funny hats and caves, saying stuff and wearing robes and sounding funny with names you can't pronounce and religions you don't really know that much about, who have sworn this blood oath to destroy us. And we're going to tell you things like they hate our freedom, they hate our way of life, they hate that which is American. Oh, yeah. And of course, punctuate that with 9/11, and that's it. All bets are off. But we take that person, and that becomes the problem. Number two, the reaction. The reaction from you. Do something. Fix this thing. Make us safe. Remove the threat. Neutralize the threat. Dilute the threat. Remove the threat. Redirect the threat. Do something with the threat. Do something other than nothing. Just do something. And with that, we'll go along. We'll make concessions. You want to tighten the reins? We'll go along with it. You want to remove and limit some of our personal freedoms? Well, when you want to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. We'll go along with that. Just make us safe. Problem, reaction, solution. Okay? We'll take care of that. But as you said, and as you've suggested, there will be a cost for that. There will be a cost. Now, one of the costs, especially from you, Mr. or Mrs. New Journalist, and this is important, you have to realize that you cannot ask too many questions. You must realize that you have to look the other way. You must realize that in this time, this epoch, this place where we live, you must realize, and this is critical to note, that you cannot ask too many questions. Now, when the president or the White House or the Pentagon or anybody delivers something, you are to repeat and not report. You are not to question anything. Your job is not to do that. Let me remind you of another problem, another existential threat, which we didn't want to tell you about, but you might as well know. We are being threatened. Our existence as journalists, as on-air people. Look, I realize most of you folks have no interest in being a journalist. You don't want to be a Peter Arnett or a Lizzie Phelan. You don't want to go over to Aleppo or Ghouta or Da Nang in Vietnam. You don't want to do that. Those days are over with. You want to be a star, don't you? You want to be a star. You want to prop your feet up on the desk and you want to drink coffee and be cool and be pretty and just Instagram yourself away and be, oh God, just you want to be a star so much. Maybe Good Morning America, maybe CNN, or maybe you'll be the next Babe, the next Megyn Kelly, the next whatever it is. We understand that. We understand that. But that's only going to happen if we're in business. And that we're only going to be in business if we don't rock the boat like the Hughes Corporation reminded us not to, and if we don't ruffle the feathers of those people who really call the shots. So if you ever get to the position where you think you're going to maybe question 9/11 or question the results of some new pronouncement regarding the terrorist group du jour, whether it's ISIS or IS or AQI or AQ or ISIL or IS or Daesh or Khorasan or al-Nusra or Nusra or Khorasan or whatever it is. If you ever think you're going to question that, you're out of your mind, because you don't understand something. Look around you. The newsrooms are being shuttered. We are being destroyed. We are being shut down. There's a new sheriff in town, and that sheriff is this group. Look around you. Nobody's watching us anymore. We got this thing. We got this platform. You see this right here? See this? This is your worst nightmare. What this can be, what this represents to you, ooh, look at that. What this represents to you, is that neat or what? Hey, Baba Reba. What this represents to you is the truest of existential threats. There are people out there, young people, older people, black people, white people, gay people, straight people, who are so good at producing spots. Some are absolutely phenomenal with their ability not only to present something and know something, and learn something and explain it, but their production is incredible. Then there are other forms of new platforms that only added one improvement to the entire mix. A new microphone. That's it. That's it. No fancy bells, no fancy whistles. Just pure, raw, unadulterated talent. Talent. Raw brain power. Cover me, Luke, while I make it to the wagon over and out mall. Okay? Oh, this is tough. So let me just explain this to you. When we tell you it's Hillary, it's Hillary. When we tell you it's against Trump, it's against Trump. You got it? If you don't like it, don't work here. If you don't like it, go someplace else. When they tell you that Bashar al-Assad is the bad guy, you don't ask any questions. That is it. And you'll be relatively handsomely, not like the old days, but you'll be handsomely compensated for that. And the people who are running the show that you work with will not only applaud you, but they will agree with you. You will be part of the team. It will behoove you tremendously for you to play along with the team. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does this make any sense to you? Do you grasp what I'm saying? I can't say it enough. The days of you actually going out of your way to uncover governmental corruption and the like, those days are over. Gone. Finished. Through. Do I make myself clear? You're a repeater. You're not a reporter. You're not going to question anything. You're not going to do anything to threaten our existence or your employment. You're not going to do anything to cause light to be shed on something that was pretty well settled. And when we tell you that buildings fell because of jet fuel, when we tell you that a plane flew 6 feet off the ground and hit the Pentagon and left a 10-foot wide diameter hole, if we tell you that some plane landed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, when in fact the debris field was 8 miles away in New Baltimore and Indian Lake, when we tell you that Vietnam happened because of a slow and deliberate encroachment, a domino effect, when in fact it was all contrived in a false flag through Tonkin Gulf resolutions. When we go back in time and tell you that in 1898 the Maine was blown up by the Spanish in Havana Harbor, when in fact we did it. When we tell you about COINTELPRO, you're not going to repeat that. When we tell you about Operation Mockingbird, you're not going to repeat that. When we tell you that the United States has been involved directly in more rigged elections than you can imagine, you are not going to say anything. You are going to question nothing. Let me repeat this. Let me make this very, very clear. You're not going to repeat or say anything. That's not your job. Your job is to be cute or pert or funny or sexy or whatever you think it is, and it's to repeat this. If you don't like this, you can go elsewhere. That's the way that is. You're a repeater and not a reporter. How do you like them apples? All right, my friend, don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to it. And by the way, your pictures and your emails that you have been sending, my favorite is when somebody holds up a picture. Ooh, look at that. It's a picture of me, inside a picture of me, inside a picture of me. But when people hold these up and take pictures of them and snap them, and I'm going to save them and put them up, it's an honor, an honor. And also, I'm seeing some great photos of you and geoengineering and chemtrails, as you would call them, nanoparticularized aluminum and barium, and these nanoparticulate aerosolization, the hash marks. It's been incredible. It's been amazing. I've been so impressed by what you've said. Pictures of you and your family and your dogs, and I love that so much. And you've also been very good in telling me whether you're a man or a woman, so if I say thank you, sir, or madam, or ma'am, or miss, or whatever it is, I can tell, because sometimes there are some names that, frankly, in foreign languages, I don't know what they mean. And that's my fault, not yours. So until you and I meet each other again, thank you so much for making Lionel Nation such a hit. And now you may comment as you see fit.